welcome back everyone. So we're doing mobile first design. We're working on our navigation bar. And being mobile first, we design, of course, just kind of a little quick recap. We design, of course, for the mobile view. And by not floating our list item, by the way, the only reason why we had to set float as none is because we added Bootstrap. And Bootstrap added this .navpills and then this selector, which means direct descendant list item. And it put a float left on it, even on the narrowest of viewports. So the narrowest window you could view on. So we had to remove the float, and this is only because we didn't start our own style from scratch. If it were me and I wasn't using Bootstrap, I just wouldn't set anything because by default, a list item is displayed as a block and it's not floated. But we had to remove it because we're dealing with a framework called Bootstrap, and so we're having to kind of deal with that, override it. Now, the best way to think about mobile first is you start by putting your window as narrow as you can get, you design for it, and then you create a bunch of responsive breakpoints. Each one progressively getting wider and wider. So if I were to then suddenly do an at media min width 500 pixels after the min width of 927, it really gets confusing. You should keep everything ordered. It will highly enhance your experience designing. It will make it a lot easier to work. So I may end up adding some breakpoints before this one. I'll just see. We got to get to our phone navbar. So now that our list items are no longer floating, I would like to add some styles to help sort of see what's going on here. Also, these are styled different because these are children. And so one of the things I want to do is we're going to do a couple things here on mobile design. The first thing is there's really no reason to show the entire navbar as is. The other thing is on most mobile sites, you're usually not presented with the full navbar. You're presented with a little button that when you click it, it can expand the whole thing. I'm going to wait to introduce that button until the next a later tutorial. But for now, let's hide all nested links. In order to do that, we're going to use the developer tool as we see over here. I want to just point out right here at the top, we are looking at the navbar. It's an unordered list of links. And I want you to notice two list items are significant. This list item and this list item, they both have children. Not only that, but because of the WordPress menu system, it already gives you a class called page item has children. So any list item that has a page item has children is going to have an unordered list under it, and we're going to want to hide that. So we're going to hide it in a couple different ways. I want to hide it with a mind that when I hover, it will actually expand automatically. We use a little animation. So in order to do that, there's some techniques that we got to do. First of all, we got to target the unordered list inside of here, but guess what? It has its own class called children. So any unordered list with a class of children, we're going to hide. So that's easy. But how are we going to hide it? I'm going to put a little comment here. Hide nested links in navbar. And so we're going to put children. Now, there's a lot of ways we can hide it. Okay. One of the things I like to do is do an opacity of 0. Let's just test that one out. Hit refresh. Opacity of 0 is going to hide it. We can't see it, but guess what? It's too tall, right? We don't want all that space. So let's just do a height. Let's try a height of 0. Hit refresh. There we go. They're all gone. Okay. But now you're like, well, how do we get those back? Well, do you even want them back? If you don't, you're done. If you do want them back, and you're probably going to want them back at the very least on the horizontal navbar, how about we do a little hover effect? And so we're going to do a little transition. We're going to do a little animation. When you do transition or animation, what we're doing is we're gonna transition. We're gonna go from an opacity of 0 and a height of 0 to an opacity of 1 and a height of. We'll try automatic and see if it lets us do that. So watch what I do. I'm gonna copy this whole thing. Oh wait, no, I don't want to copy it. Hold on, not just yet. First of all, let's do our transition. For WebKit browsers, we're going to go ahead and do a vendor prefix, transition, and then we're going to do, now what do we want to transition? Do we want to animate the opacity? Do we want to animate the height? Or do we want to animate it all? Well, let's animate it all. And let's do 2 seconds to really exaggerate this whole thing. And then we'll just do transition. All 2 seconds. Okay. So transition means we go from one state to another state. What is that state? It's going to be the hover state. The hover state. Now, if it has an opacity of 0 and a height of 0, we cannot hover over UL children. It won't let us. There's nothing to hover over. It has no height, and it's not visible. So, but we do have the list item that goes over it. We also note, so we're just going to put list item space ul.children. And now we're going to change the opacity and the height. Oh, wait. Before we do that. Sorry. Only when the list item is being hovered. So we use our little pseudo class. li hover. Now we'll change the opacity to 1 and the height to auto. And isn't it nice that Web Matrix has a little auto completion on the code? That's very handy. That's reason enough to use it, right? Maybe. All right, so when we hover, let's see if this works. Hit refresh. Hover over. Oh, look at that. Did you see that? Did you see it?
Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
Height is kind of weird. It's weird. It's like a transition in is okay, but a transition out, not so much. You could change different transitions. So for example, we could try a transition of height. And then we could put 0.5 seconds. So we're going to change its height much faster. Okay, and let's see if that helps anything. Has it been reloaded? Let me make sure it's reloaded. See how fast it opened? Now, interestingly enough, actually now it's like almost instantaneous. So this transition of height and all, there is a bit of, oh, I know, I did all. Let's try a transition of opacity and a transition of height, each one getting a different timing value. I'm not sure if this is even going to work, honestly. It's one way we find out stuff. We just test, experiment, play around. Well, I notice it pops out instantaneously, but it doesn't appear very fast. But you know what? People like things to happen much faster. So the only problem is sometimes when they pop out, it drops quicker than you want it to. You also notice, yeah, there we go. Well, it seems like we can't change them all, so maybe we should just go back to where we were before. And maybe make it 1 second, kind of split the difference, not quite as fast, or not quite as slow, but not instantaneous either. The nice thing is that's up for you to decide. You can play around. You can have people test the site and see what they think about it. You notice what happened when I moved too fast? A little bit of an issue with that. Okay. Well, we're well on our way to styling this. And this hover effect is pretty nice. Let's see what else we can do to style it. Yeah, I think adding some borders, maybe some background colors to make it more clear these are buttons. There's a lot of different ways we can do it. one of the things I recommend we do is get the developer tool out and just mess around. Okay, so we could put, I think as we called it was the hyperlink we wanted to change. So we go in here, notice navpils, LIA, a link. Might add my own one here. We can go ahead and try this one. Border, 1px solid. Puts a nice solid border around it. That's one way to see. Of course, our nested lists, we have a problem there. Not to mention, I think those are too tight and squished together. But we got to be careful. We stick to one thing and then focus on one item at a time. If you like the borders, go ahead and keep it. We talked about background color. We can go ahead and try background color. And then we got all these different background colors in here. One of the things, where was it? There was a way I was able to get in here and just really focus on the color. Oh, I know what it was. Get a color, click on here and there. I don't know why I had to get the hex code. You could try different colors, see how they look. Ugh, that's ugly, ugly, ugly. Well, invisible, right? We can't really see it unless we change our text color. Green, maybe more faint, maybe a type of gray. Semi-transparent, slightly green. So play around. This is where you need a color palette. So I'm not going to worry so much about it. RGBA. That doesn't hurt. So I want to add all these styles here. I don't need to change the border radius, but I'm going to go ahead and copy those styles. Go over here. Actually, I need to go back. It's the hyperlinks. I'm going to keep all the nested links in its own area. I'm going to go over here. I don't need the border radius anymore, so I delete it, save my changes. And now if I like it, and I'm just assuming I do. I'm not saying this is what you want to style on your site. I will notice, did you notice all of these have a slight jar? They jog to the right a little bit after blog. Do you notice that? There's a reason for it. So while we get our developer tools out, you click it. If you see something that looks suspect, click it and see what's going on. It was actually the list item. Turns out right here, we had this nav pills, LI, margin left 2 pixels. That was great for a horizontal nav bar, but we don't need it like this for our mobile first. So I'm going to copy that. And here's where it gets interesting. So I want to go ahead and see what that was. Since we're talking about list items, I'm going to drop this in here. I'm going to set the margin left at 0 for my mobile first style, phone portrait style. Then I'm going to go into here and add it to my breakpoint at 2 pixels. Save my changes. Go back. Hit refresh. All the links should now appear side by side. It's not. So we're still having a problem here. So guess what we need to do? Add the UL to get us higher specificity. That would be this one, UL. Let's go ahead and add UL here. Save changes. Now we'll hit refresh. Look at where it says front page. You should see it move to the left a little when we refresh. There. Now they're all perfectly lined up. And we can start dealing with these other links next. So I'll save that for the next video because we're pretty much out of time. So stay tuned for that. And maybe we'll try to add our little responsive button to expand or contract. Stay tuned for that video.